Welcome, everybody. Good evening. My name is Tyler Greene, and welcome to today's event. This is a roundtable discussion on the future of the Black community that is being led by a panel of young activists from all over the nation. Before we start, COVID Classroom would like to thank all of our Black-owned business sponsors who made this event possible. You can check all of them out at our website, www.covidclassroom.us, and you can just click on each picture to go to their links. Now, let's introduce the panel. I'm the moderator for the discussion and the founder of COVID Classroom. I'll be attending Morehouse College in the fall. Next, we have Johnnie Brooker. He's a rising senior and the student body president of my alma mater, St. Peter's Prep. Next, we have Mason Holland, who is a rising sophomore and public education and outreach chair at the University of Connecticut. We have Jalsa Drinkard, who's a rising freshman at Columbia University. We have Qiang, who is a rising senior at Westfield High School. We have Nia Phillips, who is a rising sophomore at Spelman College. And lastly, but not leastly, we have Lucas Hjertberg, who's a rising junior at St. Peter's Prep. Again, my alma mater. Throughout the discussion, we encourage you guys to ask questions in the comment section, as we will be selecting a few towards the end to be answered throughout the discussion. With that being said, thank you all for coming, and let's get started. So just to acquaint you guys, we've known each other for about a week or so now. We just want to get straight into the dialogue. And for those who don't know about what's going on in this climate, not just politically, but around the world, my first question to the panelists is, why are the protests necessary? And what is the cause of the riots during some protests?
So when I think of protests, I think of bringing awareness. So police brutality and injustice against the Black community has been going on for 400 years, but I feel like the world has been able to sort of ignore it. But I think now, because not only we're in quarantine, we're not allowed to go anywhere, I think the world has been forced to see what is going on and to see what Black people have been going through. So as a result, people are tired of it. Our generation specifically, we want to see change, and we want those in charge to be held accountable. So protesting is a way to bring awareness, and it is a way to bring attention to the things that would otherwise be ignored.
About the protests, I feel specifically that, the protests are there for a reason, right? There's only so many times you can go through the bureaucracy, so many times you can go to city council meetings, so many times you can vote before you realize that what you want to happen isn't happening. And to speak to the riots, I'm conflicted on the riots because I can't support the fact that people are looting stores. I can't support the fact that people are killing other protesters and police officers. But I can tell you that it's a necessary thing to have happen, because you have people that, when people peacefully protest, people can easily tune that out. People could just go home. People could go to another town. People could not be outside. When you actually have people in the streets rioting, when you have them inside the CNN buildings, when you have people going from place to place, people are, like to Nia's point, people are forced to pay attention to what's actually going on. Not to say that the protesters are rioting, but when you have people that are in the streets doing these things, it brings a sense of awareness to the situation that may not be brought through peaceful protesting. And it also brings a sense of urgency to the issue.
Could you again just reiterate what the difference between a protest and a riot is, just for some people that might not find the disparities between the two?
Absolutely. So peaceful protesting is inherently peaceful. It's it's one of the things that's beautiful about the democracy that we have. And it's a place where people are free to voice their First Amendment rights and say whatever they want to say in a loud group setting. Riots are when people they move away from that track. They move away from peace, move towards looting stores. They move towards violence. They move towards wrecking things and spraying graffiti on walls. And I think it should be definitely highlighted that the protests are really by people who want to see change within the institution of the country. The riots are actually completely different. You have people that are just going there to cause havoc and wreak chaos, but inherently both of these things are necessary. You need one side that's peaceful and is demanding that the bureaucracy change, and then you need this other side that, although these things are terrible and these things shouldn't really happen, the actual ideal of what they are and what the image is and what it purports to the rest of the country gives a great awareness to the side that's being peaceful and voicing their opinions. And they are tied together, but they're not, they're not mutually exclusive to each other, but they are both necessary to have change in this country happen.
Johnnie, you went to a protest the other day, didn't you? Can you speak a little bit on your experience?
Yeah, I did. So yesterday I went to the protest in West Orange, and it was a great sight to see because it was a protest. It was just people. It wasn't just people of color, but it was people of all different races from all different backgrounds coming together in unity. And when I got home, my mom asked me, what did I pick up from that protest? And I picked up on that. It gave me hope, like hope that things will change in the future. And I think these protests, they're important because it not only builds unity, but it's making other people that are not there, who don't support it, uncomfortable. And that's important because these protests, they need to keep on happening so change can come. So the goal of these protests is for different reforms to come into action so things in schools can change, for the government to make different decisions. So this is why I think these protests are very, very necessary. And that's why I pretty much enjoyed my experience yesterday in West Orange.
That's really powerful. You know, being uncomfortable is such a great catalyst for change. Anna, we were speaking about this actually yesterday. Do you have anything to say about that?
Yeah, I do. So I think that protests are necessary because it spreads the cause of the Black Lives Matter movement, which I believe is a peaceful movement. And the reason I disagree with looting and rioting is that we have these people who take advantage of the movement and who might not be there to support it, who are wreaking havoc on the country or protesting, and destroying areas. So I do believe that this form of violence is not okay.
For the flip side, for some people that may think that the violence is necessary, what do you have to say to that?
I believe that the violence that has been occurring has really shown the government exactly the depths of this protest, because I also agree with what previous panelists said, as in if it was all peaceful, then maybe people would ignore the issue or they wouldn't take it as seriously. So I do believe that this violence has really just casted light on the issue and has made it more important to everyone who can tune into this and read things on the media.
I also think personally that a lot of times people act in violence because it's the only language that their enemy or their antagonist understands. And we always try to go the peaceful route. And a lot of times that's our initial thought, because we want to create a society that's helpful for everybody. At the end of the day, when there are human rights that need basic needs, you can only short-live your temper and stay composed for so long. And it becomes indecent to expect such composure after such oppression for such long. And a lot of times we're coming from a place of trauma, and trauma doesn't go away easily. It doesn't go away because you want it to go away. It takes a lot of time, a lot of effort, a lot of patience, and eventually our patience does run out. And you have to be willing to accept that if you only want to speak in violence and you only want to pay attention to violence, then we will do so and make sure that you see our message by any means necessary. So when America is like, they shouldn't have been violent, this is what Martin Luther King would want, we're running out of patience. And at the end of the day, we have to do what we need to get our rights by any means necessary. And I think that's what a lot of people are missing.
Yeah. I'm sorry, is it cool for me to jump in now?
Sure, yeah. This is Marc Lamont-Hill. Pleasure having you on. You can go ahead.
Yeah, no, the pleasure's mine, man. I appreciate and admire everything that you all are doing tonight and the conversation that you all are having. And I'm glad to have been able to listen to a little bit of it. The moment we're in is so interesting, and it's challenging. And my daughter wanted to go to a protest last week, and I told her that she couldn't, not because I cared about her going to I've been going to protests since I was her age, younger than her. She's 16. But I didn't want her to bring it back to me, COVID-19 that is, and I didn't want to risk my father, who's 92, getting sick. He's already very weak, and I worry about that. And the reason I'm bringing that up is because the idea of a Black person having to decide between risking their lives by going outside to fight police violence, state violence, or remaining inside and increasing potentially the chances of being subjected to state violence because it doesn't stop, is the kind of ignoble paradox that only Black folk in America have to rescue. I mean, can you imagine having to decide between, risking your life outside, or just having to wrestle with the idea of risking your life outside to stop them from killing you, on normal days? That suggests that the moment we're in is one that is exaggerated right now, but that has been produced over decades. We don't just enter a moment like this. This isn't just bad luck. This isn't just a confluence of terrible shit that happened at one time. Like, oh my God, COVID came and then they started shooting us. Well, nah. But the intersection of these two things happens at this moment. But the danger of COVID itself is linked to not just medical challenges, health challenges, epidemiological challenges. But the reason we're struggling with COVID right now is because of an infrastructure that has never been able to adequately protect everyone. A state that has never been able to adequately protect its citizens. This entire moment we're in right now is reflective of a state that cannot or has not adequately defended or protected all of its citizens. So when you go to a place like Atlanta and you see that 80% of people in the hospitals are Black, at the moment where the state is saying, well, let's open up for business. Well, right. that speaks to the disposability of Black life. When you have everybody told to stay home, but we can quarantine. I have privilege, right? I can sit in my house and quarantine and write books and read and talk to y'all on Zoom and all of that. But when I want to go get some food and I got to go to the supermarket or I got to go to the Target or wherever I go, there's somebody there making $8 an hour who is now on the front lines of the most dangerous pandemic in modern history. A police officer expects it. An EMT expects it. A doctor expects it. But the cashier at Walmart doesn't expect to be on the front lines of an epidemiological crisis when they take that job. But they don't have the luxury of working from home. They don't have the luxury of doing, and then they go home to a housing project where you don't have the luxury of social distancing.
Right.
Because we're dense. Even if I stay in the crib, it's 6 of us, right? And I got to raise money to pay the lawyer to get my son out of prison because the New York prison, the infection rates are literally 100 times sometimes where they are in other places. I can't social distance in prison. What I can do in prison is make masks and hand sanitizer that leaves the prison and goes to people in New York who can sit at home and work on Zoom. So the entire infrastructure takes the most economically vulnerable people, the most socially vulnerable people, and makes them more vulnerable. So now they're not just vulnerable to the normal stuff, they're now increasingly subjected to premature death because they're poor. And then we get a video and we look at Ahmaud Arbery being killed. And then we realize that they saw the video 3 months before we saw the video. And then we realize, wait a minute, they're only making an arrest because we saw the video, not because they saw the video. They already saw the video. They just know we know. Again, sends a message of what? We not safe.